Microphone 4, please.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm from Queensland. I'd just like to ask if perhaps some of the solution would be to create some new media outlets, because in Queensland all the papers are owned by Murdoch, and I was a journalism student. I've decided not to follow that career path, perhaps because of the topic of this debate. So I think maybe part of the solution is to create some new outlets, new voices. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Microphone 2.
My name's Nat. I've actually got a really simple question, which is, what is the media? The people in the affirmative have told us that it's Rupert Murdoch, and the people in the negative have told us it's individual journalists. So, yeah, what is the media? Is it the CEO, is it journalists, or is it us who consumes it?
And microphone 4.
Much of the debate tonight has focused on the large multi-billion-dollar corporations who own and run the media, the Packers, the Murdochs. I just find it really interesting that the one big company that hasn't been mentioned is Fairfax, who owns the Sydney Morning Herald, who is actually a sponsor of the debate tonight. So I'm wondering, first of all, is it moral at all to have a debate about whether the media have no morals when the media actually sponsor the debate? And why haven't Fairfax been mentioned tonight? Have you guys been asked not to mention them?
Just to clarify, Fairfax is a media partner, which means they carry information about it. They're not actually sponsoring it in the sense in which they suggest it. But, so for full disclosure, that is the nature of the relationship. As far as I know, no one here has been asked by Fairfax not to mention them. Unless you have, no? Stephen Mayne.
I can safely say that I got in trouble from the former Fairfax chairman, Ron Walker, for what I said at the 2009 Intelligence Squared debate. So I got in trouble for that, and I'm happy to have a crack at Fairfax. And my personal view is that with the former Woolworths CEO, Roger Corbett, as chairman of Fairfax, it is difficult that Fairfax doesn't go harder on this whole situation in Australia of having the most concentrated grocery supermarket industry in the world, where two players have 80%, doing a lot of damage to suppliers, and a lot of, most biggest profit margins in the world, Woolworths, of any supermarket company. There should be a media campaign around this. And my personal view is Fairfax does pull its punches a little bit on this, because the former Fairfax Woolies CEO is chairman of Fairfax. Apologies to the sponsor for saying that.
Julian Burnside.
Yes. I haven't been told to say anything or to say nothing about Fairfax. I mean, Fairfax is the best organ of the press in Australia. You might fault them, but the fact is, Fairfax is bloody good. Yeah. Okay. And that's a totally unsolicited endorsement, all right?
Yeah, we hope. Kate Adie.
On the question of what is the media, we could take 6 hours to say it, or we could just say that it's an implement. It's not a set of moral values in itself. It is something that can be used, like a knife. A surgeon can use a knife to save a life. Someone else can stick it in someone and kill them. It is merely the quality of the people who use this tool which determine the results. And until we actually get the young people to come into this business and understand their principles, we will get, if we're not careful in a society which cares hysterically about being rich. I am faced by media students now who say, what do you want to do? Go around the world, find interesting people, do worthwhile. They say, I want to be rich and famous. It's not the media who have done that, it's the society they are in. We have to care more about things that really matter.
Can I add something to what Kate
said? Yeah, just one briefly, because we need to move back to the audience to cast their vote.
I just want to add something to what Kate has said, because I think what she's really saying is that the media is the whole show. It's the people at the top, it's the people at the grassroots, it's the whole organism. You can't just pick and choose and say, we don't like that bit, those bits, therefore that's the media. It is the whole show. That's why I said before, if you want to see where the balance lies, imagine yourself without any of the media, any of it at all, and see whether you think you're better off.
Okay. Just on Fairfax, I thought they were pretty terrible when they took on Miranda Devine. She who said that greenies should be strung up from light poles. But now they've handed it back to the Murdoch press. I think they're all right and should get an endorsement.
Okay. Look, I'm sorry to those people. We've got people lined up still wanting to make comments and speeches. We just don't have enough time to do that. Mona and Stephen, the votes have all been cast now, so I don't think it's going to affect the result. But the notion of the licensing of the media, which has been raised, licensing, do you two have concerns about that?
I'm very comfortable with a fit and proper test for anyone who holds a privileged, powerful position in the media. It's as simple as that. And think about it this way. If Murdoch decided to sell, if suddenly 70% of Australia's newspapers were up for grabs, would everyone just say, yeah, whoever you like? Chinese government, some billionaire somewhere? No worries, yeah. Someone who's been in jail? No worries. Of course we would be absolutely concerned, as any country in any democracy would be concerned, if 70% of the newspapers were in one hand. So when you have such concentration, unprecedented in any democracy, of course you should have some sort of regime that at least gets them to honour their own so-called ethical standards, which they completely ignore in the way they operate.
Mona, are you equally comfortable?
I am allergic to the word licensing because I come from a background where the Mubarak regime and regimes that preceded him consistently used media licenses to silence people. My first journalism job in my early 20s was for a newspaper that had to be published outside of Egypt and then flown into Egypt and then be subject to the censor's office, basically, because the Egyptian regime would not give them a license to print. So my question is always, who has the power to give and revoke the license? Whether it's a dictatorship or a democracy. It's an incredible amount of power, and I'm very allergic to that kind of power. But then I'm also allergic to the idea of the Murdoch empire. That also really worries me. And so, any kind of absolute control from anybody should worry us all, whether we come from dictatorships or supposedly democratic countries.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Look, I now have the results of your vote. And I'd just like to remind you, before I give you the results, of how it stood in the pre-debate poll. Before you heard the arguments, for had 58.4% of the votes, against was 17.8%, and undecided, a very significant 23.8% of you. Now that the vote has been cast, the result is as follows. For is now 45.1%, and against, winning the debate, is 50.7%, which I declare. So, congratulations to those who were against the motion. I'd like to thank our speakers, all of them. Would you please join me in thanking our speakers? Our thanks to everybody here in the concert hall at the Sydney Opera House at the Festival of Dangerous Ideas. It's been a very stimulating debate about an important topic. My thanks to Intelligence Squared for making it possible, but it's goodbye from me, Simon Longstaff, and everybody here in Sydney. Good night.
After having a son, I began to be more concerned about his future. The way we live now, burning the fossil fuel, we need to step up and do something about it.
Mazda, for me, is like no other project in the world. The idea of the city itself was to be carbon neutral. The architecture is based on old Arabic cities. The narrow streets are very important to keep out the sun during the day. At the moment, we're testing the personal rapid transport. It's a driverless electric vehicle, and it's powered from our solar farm.
We're kind of living in a laboratory, and we know that, but we're happy because this is what we want the world to be in the future.
When the solar field was built, we chose the Suntech panels. A great number of the components are manufactured by DuPont. For us, it's about picking the people that are on the leading edge of technology.
There are two key DuPont materials in this panel. The photovoltaic paste and that polymeric sheet that provides longevity and reliability
We're currently consuming about 40% of the total energy that we're producing, which is just incredible.
Suntech and DuPont are working very closely to develop the next generation of solar modules. There's enough solar energy coming from the sun in a day to be able to provide enough energy for the world for an entire year. So solar power has a core role to play in being part of the solution for our clean energy future.
We are just a few years away from the cost of electricity generated by PV is going to be lower than the cost of electricity generated by fossil fuels.
Mazda needs to be replicated for the benefit of everybody, really. But we would like to be the Silicon Valley of clean technology.
We're already changing the future. We're already part of the solution.